What is up, Ravens Flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and a friend, a familiar face on the show, Andy Greder from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Andy, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. Probably not doing as well as you in the land. What is it? The land of 10,000 lakes? Isn't that what it is? Isn't that Minnesota?
It is, yeah. And they were frozen until about last week. So yeah, it's finally springtime here, and yeah, we're ready to enjoy all 3 weeks of summer.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I know it's absolutely beautiful up there, and hopefully you guys get to enjoy the 3 weeks while you got them. But we are here to talk about another second consecutive year in which the Ravens have taken a Minnesota player off the board. Obviously, Rashad Bateman last year, and this year, the one and the only Daniel Faalele. We're really excited to talk about. So, Glenn, I'll let you kick it off, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime there's a new face to the Ravens, the first thing we want to talk about is the person that they're getting, not necessarily the player. So what kind of teammate and what kind of guy are the Ravens getting in Daniel Faalele?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a cliche, but kind of a gentle giant. You know, he was a guy that was very soft-spoken, didn't do a lot of media when he was here at Minnesota, but just a very kind-hearted guy who was very family oriented. You know, he sat out the COVID year in 2020 out of concerns for his mom to get COVID. So I think a guy that, you know, is kind of a quiet, reserved, kind, gentle giant.
Nice. So now that we know who he is as a person and as a teammate, what kind of football player is he like? Because the tape I've seen, he doesn't seem to be very kind, or not that he's like unsportsmanlike or anything like that, but certainly he's plenty physical and imposing. What type of player would you consider him to be?
Yeah, I mean, at 6'8", 380 pounds, he played right tackle for the Gophers and kind of plugged in kind of right away when he got onto campus as kind of a true freshman, and was playing in the Big Ten, which is not, you know, an easy jump to make. He's a much better run blocker than pass blocker. I think that's probably why you saw him fall to the fourth round like he did. So I think that's, I mean, one game in particular stands out to me when I think he really started to pop and really started to feel confident in himself, just because he's also relatively new to the game. You know, he's from Melbourne, Australia, went to IMG Academy, the kind of pipeline in Florida there. But hadn't played a lot of high school football, maybe 1 or 2 years before he came to Minnesota. But the game that will always stand out to me is the Quick Lane Bowl in 2018 against Georgia Tech, when he was, you know, pancake blocking Yellow Jacket defenders 15, 20 yards downfield, and was just an absolute monster in that game. So, you know, more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. I'm sure as a tackle that is certainly concerning at the NFL level, given the kind of twitch that can come off the edge in a franchise quarterback like Lamar Jackson. But, you know, they must be confident that he can make the strides in the pass pro that can make him a potential NFL player.
Yeah, and I know he's drawn a lot of comparisons to former Raven Orlando Brown Jr. because of their size and similar length. But my biggest concern when I hear any comparisons with Orlando is Daniel okay playing right tackle, or is he going to come up here and start crying and want to play left?
No, I don't think so, man. He was a right tackle throughout his college days.
Okay.
Didn't play anything else. And I think how I described him at the start is kind of like Bateman, like a very low ego kind of guy, a guy who will come in and do the work and is about the right things, won't make it about himself, kind of a team type player. He's not going to come in there and demand to play left tackle. He's never played it. I don't think it's comfortable for him, and nor does it kind of fit his MO.
It's so funny. I have my hot buttons, like Baker Mayfield is a hot button of mine. Any opportunity Glenn gets to throw dirt on Orlando Brown, boy, he loves to do it, man. But now I want to feed off that comparison because I have a follow-up question to that. Yeah. Orlando Brown was not known for being, while he's an absolute giant, right? He wasn't certainly athletically overwhelming, right? He's just a wall. Now, I read up on some history, of course, with Daniel, in that he has a rugby background, and immediately I think of a Ravens player that had a rugby background in Haloti Ngata, right? Like that was Haloti's first sport, and then he transitioned to football. And if you watch some of Haloti, like 3 seconds of Haloti Ngata's rugby film, it is
terrifying.
It's bad to. I mean, it's tough watching. Poor kids, like they're just getting destroyed. It makes me think of that old game Rampage.
Oh
yeah, it was really bad. But I guess my question is, I say all that to say, what type of athlete is he? Like you talked about being a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but what type of athlete is he at that
at
size?
384?
Yeah, I think part of the reason why he also slid in the draft is he didn't have a lot of the measurables. Like his jumps weren't as good, his 40 time wasn't as good. But I'm not a big underwear Olympics kind of guy. I'm more of a guy of if you can prove it on the field. I think he'll hold up athletically speaking. Just as kind of a funny aside, they gave him the ball as a fullback. You probably saw that highlight in the guaranteed rate bowl when he plunged in from about 2 yards out. He was also on the throwing end of a trick play in a Gopher spring game. So they mixed it up with him to kind of show some versatility and just kind of have some fun with their biggest player. I don't think, athletically speaking, I don't think he's going to pop off the charts, but I don't think he's going to hinder you either.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, that's good to hear. Now, right now, there's a guy at right tackle in Morgan Moses who was just signed by the Ravens. He's been very healthy throughout his career, a solid starting right tackle. So the expectation is that he'll be the guy this year. But so for Daniel, either he waits his turn at right tackle, which could mean up to 3 years, 2 full seasons of waiting because, Morgan signed for a 3-year deal. The quickest way on the field might be through playing some guard. Has he have any experience playing guard? And do you think he would succeed moving inside?
Yeah, I don't think he ever played any guard. I don't think there was any sort of spot duty that he had inside. I wonder, just given his massive size, if that's really the best spot for him. I wonder if he talked about when I chatted with him before last season about wanting to cut down even more. I think 380 is still just astronomically big. So if he has a couple of years to kind of develop his game, if he's able to shed even more weight as well, I think there's probably some room there, some probably bad weight as they call it, that he could probably shed and maybe get into the 360 range, and that might help him get on the field more. But I think he's more of a natural tackle than the ability to kind of flex inside.
Gotcha. Well, I have to say this, coming out of the draft, and I'll just take one more shot one more time. Coming out of the draft, he certainly didn't look like he carried as much bad weight as one Orlando Brown, who was just bad. I mean, woo! So he carries it really well, is my point.
Yeah, he doesn't look sloppy at 384. It
No.
doesn't look sloppy at all.
And so you talked about him having goals and wanting to trim, even take some more off and things like that. And I think it's a great plan for him to sit behind a guy like Morgan Moses and watch and learn, because he's so new in the game, like you mentioned. But what kind of worker is he, right? Like we know Coach Fleck up there, and he seems to instill in guys this work ethic. If they don't already have it, right? This team first mentality, this work ethic. But what kind of worker is he, on and off the field?
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of a red flag that came up during a spring ball a couple of years ago. He sat out in 2020 due to COVID. And then we only had ability to watch, they have 15 spring practices. We had to watch 3 or 4. So it could have just been the timing of it. But he stormed off the field one day and didn't come back. And I think that caught all of ours attention of, whoa, what's going on with him? What's going on with that situation, that dynamic? And he came back and finished spring ball and was fine. So I don't see anything kind of beyond that. He was very durable. He played when he didn't sit out the COVID year. He played every game. Didn't come out for injury. They had a little bit of a rotation, but I think that was just to keep guys fresh. But he played a lot of football outside of the COVID year and was pretty reliable for most of it, outside of maybe that one blip that we saw. I don't know if it was part of a bigger issue, but sometimes you need to cool out once in a while too.
I think he wanted reps at quarterback or something, right?
Yeah, maybe that's
after completing the pass in the spring game, you know, it makes sense.
Got a taste. He wants more.
He's like, give me the ball, man. Let me show you what I can do. Well, let me ask you this: when you think of a guy who played 1 year at IMG, a few years in Minnesota, do you think that they're, you know, kind of the knock on some Alabama guys is that they may have already peaked? You know, they get such great coaching. They're challenged every week at the SEC. That some people say they've already reached their pinnacle. How much room do you see for growth for Daniel's game when he's so new to the sport?
Yeah, I would say that it's still growing, just given the fact that, you know, he's still learning the game, still learning the nuances of it. You know, like I said, like we've talked about, he hasn't played a lot of football with the COVID year. I think he's played, you know, 4 total years of football at high school and the college level. So I think it shows that, you know, there's potential for growth within him as well. And, you know, he got a really good coaching here in Minnesota too, you know, with Brian Callahan, who's a very respected offensive line coach. He's going to have a center that's going to come out this year, John Michael Schmitz, who's up for the Remington Award. So they're going to have another guy. They had 2 other offensive linemen that were undrafted free agents that are going to get a shot. They had a tight end that was part of the upfront group that they had that got drafted, and O'Keefe that went to Tampa. So there were a number of guys from this team last year that played at a high level and are either drafted or getting shots at the NFL or will get shots at the NFL. So there was a very high bar in that room. You know, the one guy that didn't play that isn't going on to the NFL is becoming a doctor, like literally a doctor. So it was a very high level bar.
Not a chiropractor.
Not a chiropractor. Not a you know, a doctorate of literature, nothing like that,
or an honorary doctorate we see these celebrities getting.
Yeah, not like Chris Farley going to college for 7 years. Let's put it that way. So yeah, like I'm saying, it was a very high bar in that room. He was pushed to a high level. They ran the ball with a lot of efficiency, and he was a big part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think the Ravens aren't too concerned about any lack of ability right now in the passing game because we like to run the football here in Baltimore. So,
he's going to have the opportunity to be the extra tackle. I can't wait to see him lined up next to Morgan Moses as a tight end and goal line. And then Pat Ricard's 305 coming behind him. I mean, that's a lot of weight pushing on that right side.
Yeah, and then after all that, Lamar Jackson's just buzzing around back there with the post.
Yeah, he's used to in Minnesota. They ran, you know, 6 and 7 offensive lineman packages, so he's used to being covered up as a tackle as well, and really making some double and triple teams at the point. So
oh man, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We can't wait. Certainly, I'm excited for it. I think this kid has an opportunity to, like Glenn said, come in creative ways and you know, barring injury, of course, but participate more than maybe some people even anticipate themselves. So Andy, thank you so much for the time. We're excited. And we appreciate the analysis. It's great to get it right from someone like yourself who's seen him mature as a player. Very last question before we let you go. What do you see? We talked about, you know, him having runway, but is there a player that sticks out to you that's a decent comparison to like what he could potentially become in a best case scenario?
Oh man, I'm not very good with the NFL comps. I'll probably pass on that one. I wonder if we'll be talking next year at this time. You know, we've been 2 years in a row with former Gophers. So, you know, they must like what they see in Minnesota players. So maybe we'll be doing this sometime next year. I wish I could give you a comp. I don't.
It's got to be Orlando, right? I mean,
but do you see him? I guess let me
or Alejandro Villanueva. Let's hope we get the early one and not the late.
Yeah. Let me rephrase this question then. Do you see him as a type of player that could be a 5-7 year starter, maybe a fringe Pro Bowl type guy at right tackle? Like, do you see that as his best case scenario, something better or worse? Like, where do you see him in a hypothetical best case scenario?
Yeah, I see him, you know, building himself into a substantial pro that has, you know, a 6-8 year career that is above average type of player.
Nice. All right, we'll take it for the 4th round, man.
Yeah, right.
And like you said, tons of potential there and all the runway that he has. So hopefully we'll be back next year. The Ravens seem to have their schools that they pull from, and Minnesota, like you said, seems to be one of them as of recently that they have their eyes on. Andy, where can folks find the stuff that you're working on?
Yeah, on Twitter at Andy Greder and twincities.com.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll do this again next year.
See you. Sounds good.